Shalom and good day all, this is Tehillim29 back again for another DC review, and for this DC review I'll be covering the DC Pride 2023, and let's move into first things first, and that is the Racing for the cover. Now, does this cover in any way, shape or form connect to something that is happening inside with the story? Well, we do get to see these characters, that is one thing, but one thing I really want to point out is that I really don't like the art characterization for this Bendis boy John Kent here and the Megan Fitzmartin imposter Tim Drake. It's probably the worst of the images that are actually on this. Then we've got the rest of the female characters, and they look absolutely fine. It's only the male characters that look absolutely hideous. To which I give this cover a 6. That's right, a 6 out of 10. Now, I think the one last year was probably a little bit better than this year's. And I was almost thinking of picking up maybe a variant of this. I did happen to see one that was around $40. I still might pick it up, but at least it looked a little bit better than this one. It's the only other way I could put it. So now let's move into having a look at what this provides for us. So as we look to the side here, we have at least 10 stories. And there's also one with Dreamer in the end. And one thing I think this could really do too is also point out the characters that are in each of the stories. I think it would also help with the rating of what I gave the stories to. Of course, we've got the foreword. So what we'll do next is I'll show you some pages connecting to each story, and then work into giving the racing for each story as soon as I finish sort of like showing the first to the last story. So the first one we've got here deals with Earth 36, written by Grant Morrison. And we've got a number of pages here. The next we have follows Crush, Harley and Ivy. The next one covers Tim Drake and Connor Hawke. We, of course, have Circuit Breaker and Jesse Quick. This one covers Apollo and Midnighter, along with Alan Scott. This one follows Xanthi and Batwoman, which was really quite nice. I enjoyed this. This one follows Nubia. This one follows Ghostmaker and Catman. This one follows Constantine and Imposter John Kent. And this one covers the character of Dreamer. So now I'll move into the next area, and that is the racing of each story. Moving into the first one, which covered Earth 36. I gave the story a 7 out of 10, but the art a 6.5 out of 10. I really didn't quite enjoy the art that much with the story, even though it was a story by Grant Morrison. Story 2, we had Harley, Ivy, and Crusher, to which I gave the story a 6.5 out of 10, and the art a 7 out of 10, is where it picked up. Next was the Tim Drake and Connor story, story 3. We had, for the art, I gave a 7 out of 10. It's a huge improvement of what's actually in the present Tim Drake story. But for the story overall, I gave a 6.5. It wasn't the best, but it was all right. Moving into story 4, which had Circuit Breaker and Jesse Quick. 6.5 for the story, as well as for the art. Moving into the Midnighter and Apollo story. I gave the art a 6.5 out of 10, as I felt it didn't really work well with the story. But for the overall story itself, I gave a 7 out of 10, and I do actually like what Alan Scott did in the story, because yes, you do get to see Midnighter be very violent at the beginning of it, but then it comes to a situation of somewhat celebration, and Alan Scott, using his old mentor words of wisdom, helps him out. I've seen some people be a bit upset about it, but I think sometimes the best fights are the fights that you can win on the level of the mind, more so than a punch in the face. So in other words, the art of fighting without fighting, like Bruce Lee said. And to those who remember Enter the Dragon, should remember the scene where he goes up against an opponent who wants to fight him on the mainland, and just a bit of an idea as to the art of fighting without fighting. Go check it out. And that's pretty much the words he's sort of like given by Alan Scott. And I think that's really good, and I like how that's done, because it shows that he doesn't have to fight always with his fists, but there are other ways to fight and get your message out. Next is the Xanthi and Batwoman story, to which I gave the a 7 out of 10. But you know what? This story is one of the stories that actually did get probably one of the highest ratings from me, and that was a 7.5 out of 10. Moving into the next one, which had to do with Nubia and Fem Still, who Fingo's daughter, still John Henry Irons' daughter's, whoever the hell she is. For the art, I gave a 6.5, didn't really enjoy it that much. And the story, I didn't really enjoy that much, a 6.5. Next was Catman and Ghostmaker. The art, I gave a 7 out of 10. Story, a 7 out of 10. I thought it was alright, because they're both practically villains anyway. And villains can be gay. I don't really care. Even though Batman's trying to redeem the character, make the guy a villain again. And have him end up in Arkham Asylum, please. Alright, next was the John Kent and Constantine story, to which the art I think could have been better, to which I gave a 7 out of 10. But for the overall story, I think with the art and that, it felt like this imposter John Kent was really getting a bit of a smackdown with magic from John Constantine, and I enjoyed it. I must admit, I enjoyed it, and this is probably the second one in this that did get a 7.5 out of 10 in the story. So thank you, DC. It's nice to see this character get a bit of a slap down, especially using the DC in Magic unit, or DC Magic in the universe. I quite liked it. And moving into last but not least, the one around Dreamer, to which I give the art a 6.5 out of 10. I thought the art was nice, but as small as it was, and even an indication that there might be an ongoing series to this, they might be better off doing a mini-series of this instead of a small ongoing. So maybe just a small 6-issue art, just to see how it goes with readers, and then if there's maybe a call for more, get more out. But for the overall story, I gave a 6 out of 10, because it didn't really show any indication that this character, it didn't show a strong indication that this character was actually going through a nightmare. It just felt very lackluster. it sort of expected you to depend a lot on the art, but it probably would have helped to include maybe a little bit more dialogue or thought balloons to bring it across that this character was actually having a bit of a nightmare or going through a bit of a nightmare instead of seeing it through the art. Like, you wouldn't need a lot of thought balloons, but it could have helped improve the story. Overall, let's keep it colourful and have yourself an awesome day.